Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The door swung open before my key even touched it. I almost walked straight into my roommate's bare thighs. I am Mia, 24, and my brain just stalled. She blocked the doorway in my boyfriend's hoodie, nothing on under it. At least nothing I could see, and I did see a lot. Behind her, my boyfriend's laugh hit me like a slap. She grinned at me like this was nothing. There you are, she leaned on the frame, hip pushed out. We were just talking about you. That line should have felt sweet, it felt like a warning. My eyes went straight to the hoodie. I knew that hoodie, I had stolen it 100 times. On her it barely covered her butt, the zipper half open. My stomach did a weird flip and I heard myself laugh. Nice outfit, I dropped my bag by the wall. Laundry day, or did pants just die out today? It came out lighter than I felt, almost joking. She tugged the hoodie lower, then shrugged like it was nothing. Oh my God, relax, she stepped back and waved me in. I just grabbed his hoodie, I was freezing. She said it like the most normal thing in the world. The words sounded casual, her eyes did not. He appeared behind her, phone in his hand, smile fading. Hey babe, he moved to kiss my cheek, quick and awkward. His eyes skipped over me, then back to her legs. I noticed that, filed it, pretended I did not. You gave her your hoodie, I tapped his arm once. I meant it playful, it tasted bitter in my mouth. He rubbed the back of his neck, this stupid, nervous habit. She was cold, we were just watching something. We're not are. My brain grabbed that little word and twisted it. I pictured them on the couch, her pulling at the zipper. I told myself to stop, I already felt crazy. She flopped back onto the couch and curled her legs under. The hoodie rode up again, a little higher each second. He sat on the other side, not far enough for me. There was a whole apartment, they were almost touching. Come sit, she patted the spot between them like a joke. I laughed and took the armchair instead, a safe island. Someone has to be the chaperone here, I tried to tease. It was a joke, it also was not. She rolled her eyes and nudged him with her knee. Hear that? We need supervision now. His face went red, not cute red, caught red. He cleared his throat and asked about my day. I answered on autopilot, some nonsense about work and traffic. My attention never left her body, leaning toward him. Each time he spoke, she watched his mouth, not his eyes. At the time I told myself I imagined that focus. Can you grab me some water? He pointed toward the kitchen. I finished the last bottle, sorry. Perfect chance to breathe, so I took it. My heart was pounding like something actually bad had happened. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter and forced air in. I knew I sounded dramatic, even in my own head. Still, image after image ran wild, her opening that door. I needed 1 second before I snapped at the wrong person. Their voices carried from the living room in little bursts. Her laugh came first, loud and bright and way too flirty. Then his lower reply, impossible to catch, easy to overthink. My chest tightened because I already knew the vibe. I walked back in with the glass and a practiced smile. He took it and gave me this quick, grateful look. She looked me over, that slow top to bottom sweep. Cute dress, she said like she discovered it on him. Thanks, I sat on the arm of the chair, not the couch. This is my boyfriend's favorite one actually, I looked at him. The words had teeth, I kept them wrapped in sugar. He shifted like the cushion suddenly hurt. She smirked and pulled at the hoodie's hem again. Yeah, he has great taste, she said, eyes still on him. I caught the tiny pause after the word he. I felt my palms go damp against the fabric. That was the first moment I wanted to say something real. Something like, get out of my boyfriend's clothes right now. Instead, I chose the polite version that made me hate myself. Hey, can you throw on some shorts? It's messing with my head. She stared at me for a beat that felt very long. Then she laughed like I told the funniest joke all week. You're so dramatic, she slid off the couch at last. Fine, mommy mode activated, I'll put on pants. She brushed past him on the way to her room. Her hand grazed his shoulder, not an accident, not playful. He pretended to look at his phone, jaw tight. He knew I saw that, I could tell. The door to her room clicked shut and the air shifted. It was just me and him now, and my anger. I did not want to explode straight away, I really tried. Is this normal to you? I asked, my voice low. He exhaled like he had been holding it all night. She's just like that, he said, eyes on the floor. She does that with everyone, it doesn't mean anything. He sounded tired, not convincing. With everyone who wears your hoodie, I kept my tone soft. I don't see your friends walking around half naked with you. The words came out quieter than the noise in my chest. I watched for any sign he had enjoyed it. I swear it was nothing, he finally met my eyes. She said she was cold, I tossed her the hoodie. He left something out, I felt it, I still nodded. Because admitting that out loud felt like starting a fight. The truth is I wanted the night to go back to normal. I wanted to rewind to before that door opened on her legs. So I did what a lot of people do, I gaslit myself. I told my brain to sit down and shut up. She came back in with shorts and the same hoodie. She did a little spin, like she was on some runway. Approved now, or should I grab a turtleneck too? Her eyes dared me to push it further. You're good, I forced a smile that hurt my cheeks. Sorry, I just walked in and freaked out a little. Look at that, I apologized for asking someone to wear pants. That is a sentence I never thought I would say. She flopped down next to him again, a little closer now. He stayed where he was, shoulders tense, hands locked together. On the surface, we looked like friends hanging out. Underneath, everything in me buzzed like a warning alarm. At some point, her phone lit up on the table. I saw his name flash across the screen for half a second. She tilted the screen away like it was nothing important. Back then, I decided not to think about it. We watched some show, I could not follow a single scene. Every time she laughed and touched his arm, my stomach twisted. Every time he laughed back, my brain wrote a new story. I kept smiling because I did not want to be that girlfriend. Later, when they both said goodnight, I smiled on autopilot. I told them I was tired and shut my bedroom door. Only then did my face drop, everything hitting at once. The image of her in his hoodie would not leave. Now writing this, I know that was the first clear line. The moment I should have slammed a boundary down hard. Instead, I let it slide, called myself insecure, tried to sleep. That tiny choice opened the door for everything that came next. I walked into the living room and froze halfway. She was on the rug in my boyfriend's gym shorts. They hung low on her hips, loose and very familiar. He lounged on the couch, watching her stretch in front of him. She dropped into a deep lunge and reached for her toes. The fabric climbed higher on her thighs with every slow move. He laughed at something she said and did not look away. I just stood there pretending I was not checking angles. Cute outfit, I kicked off my shoes by the wall. I aimed for light, my voice came out a little sharp. She glanced over her shoulder, hair falling as she twisted around. Thanks, I raided his drawer, hope that's okay. He scratched his jaw and shifted like the sofa bit him. Yeah, it's fine, I don't really wear those anyway. That was news to me, he basically lived in them before. I filed that detail under things that suddenly felt suspicious. I dropped onto the armchair instead of the empty cushion. From that angle, I could see the waistband clearly against her skin. They were definitely his, same tiny logo on the side. My chest tightened because this felt way more deliberate than last time. She bent again to grab the remote, back straight and slow. The shorts lifted enough that I saw the edge of underwear. He sucked in a breath, tiny sound, still obvious enough. I stared at his face, not the way she arched. Comfortable, I crossed one leg over the other, ankle bouncing. Honestly, yeah, she flopped down beside him without hesitation. They're so soft, you should thank him for having taste. Her knee nudged his thigh, like that was a totally normal thing. Well, funny story, I forced a small laugh and looked at him. I actually bought those for him, so maybe thank me instead. I smiled, teeth tight, eyes locked on her hand near his leg. Her lips curled, not quite a grin, more like a challenge. You two share everything, that's cute. She tucked one foot under. My boyfriend's gaze flashed to mine, then away just as fast. He grabbed a throw pillow and hugged it like a shield. You know that feeling when everyone acts fine and you feel insane. The show played in the background, nobody really watched. She kept leaning toward him when something mildly funny happened. He kept pretending to adjust the volume, anything to look busy. My brain whispered that this was all in my head, and maybe not. At one point she stretched both arms up, back brushing his shoulder. These might actually disappear into my room, she joked. My fingers dug into the chair, nails pressing hard into the fabric. He laughed once, short and flat, and refused to meet my eyes. Later that night, after they both knocked off to their rooms, I went to grab laundry from the bathroom hamper in silence. On top of the pile sat those same shorts, twisted and damp. Seeing them there felt way more intimate than it should have. I picked them up and turned them over in my hands. His name was written faintly inside the waistband from some old trip. My stomach turned because she never asked me to borrow anything. She went straight to his stuff like she had automatic access. He tapped on my door while I was still holding them. "Hey, you good?" His voice drifted through the wood. I opened up and held the shorts up with one finger. "These live on you, remember, not on her." He blinked, then rubbed his face like he wanted to disappear. She couldn't find anything clean, I just tossed them over. He shrugged, small and guilty, like he already knew the problem. I watched his shoulders tense and rounded, waiting for something honest. "I get that emergencies happen," I spoke slowly on purpose. "But her running around in your clothes keeps setting off alarms." I hated that I sounded jealous, I also hated being quiet. "Can you maybe not hand her your entire wardrobe again?" He nodded quickly, too quickly, like he wanted the conversation done. "You're right, I'll tell her to grab her own stuff." His hand found my waist and pulled me closer in the doorway. For a second I wanted to believe that solved anything. But the next afternoon I walked in from work and there they were. Same shorts, same girl, this time perched on the kitchen counter. He stood between her knees, reaching for something behind her head. She laughed at whatever he said and tapped his chest with one finger. I stopped just inside the doorway, keys cold in my hand. "Wow, must be the official house uniform now." My tone landed heavier than I planned, even to my own ears. They both froze like kids caught sneaking out. She jumped down, bare feet hitting the tile with a slap. "Relax, it's not that serious, I just like them." She tugged the waistband like she was showing them off on purpose. I could feel my jaw clench in this slow, painful way. "I like them too," I answered, stepping closer into the room. "Which is why I bought them for my boyfriend, not the whole world." The air thickened, no one moved, he stared at the fridge door. You could almost hear the line I just drew. Her eyes flashed, quick and sharp, then the koi mask slid back. "Got it, shorts are sacred territory, message received, boss." She hopped away with this little half smile that made my skin crawl. He watched her leave instead of backing me up. He finally spoke when her door shut with a soft click. "You made that weird, they're only shorts, nothing is happening." I laughed once, no humor, just pure frustration escaping my chest. "Then why does it feel like I'm third-wheeling my own relationship?" He flinched, actual visible reaction, then looked down at his hands. "I'm with you," he said, voice low, shoulders slumped. "She just jokes around, that's how she is with everyone." I recognized the script, I had already given myself that speech. I wish I could tell you I held my ground. That I insisted he pick a side right then and there. Instead I told him I would try to calm down. Even while every instinct in me yelled that something was off. A few days later, the shorts appeared again during a movie night. She curled sideways on the couch, legs stretched across both our laps. Her toes bumped his thigh while her head rested near my shoulder. From the outside, we probably looked like some bonded little trio. At one point, she reached for his drink and took a sip. "Hope you don't mind, I'm dying of thirst." Her gloss left a faint mark on the straw, a tiny smear. He noticed, I saw his throat move when he took it back. That image stayed burned in my mind long after the credits. Lip gloss on his straw, his shorts on her body, my silence. At the time I told myself it was just small stuff. Looking back, that was the moment the game really started. Her phone lit up right next to my hand and buzzed twice. My boyfriend's name popped across the top of the lock screen. I froze over the cutting board, knife still in my fingers. One new message previewed itself right in my face. "Lawyer evil, don't tempt me like that smiling face with horns." My chest clenched so fast I actually missed a breath. I was not mentioned by name, but I felt there anyway. Every nerve in my body went sharp and wired. The shower roared down the hall where she was singing. Her phone buzzed again before I could look away. Another preview slid up, right under the first one. At least I'd treat you how you deserve, smirking face. You know that instant when your brain screams stop and keep going. I told myself I was not unlocking anything, just reading notifications. The screen was basically shouting at me in plain daylight. Pretending I had not seen, that would have been delusional. My fingers hovered over the phone, not touching, just shaking. If I ignored it and walked away, I would spin forever. If I picked it up, I crossed a line I hated. I stood there stuck, knife in one hand, betrayal in the other. Ari. The water cut off, pipes thunked, her voice went quiet. I grabbed the phone on reflex and killed the sound. While it sat in my palm, my thumb brushed the screen. The chat window flashed open like it had been waiting. My heart dropped straight through my body when I saw the thread. Her name at the top, his little contact photo beside it. Dozens of messages sat there in a neat, bright column. Apparently, this had been going on longer than my anxiety. She had sent the first one I could see from that day. Your girl S on edge again, I swear she hates me. His response sat right under it, short and treacherous. She's dramatic sometimes, just ignore it, it'll blow over. I actually felt my face burn when I read that. Dramatic, that was what he called me when I was not there. My thumb scrolled without permission, desperate and terrified at once. Each swipe dragged more of their secret commentary into view. Maybe if she trusted you, she wouldn't freak about everything. I trust him plenty, that's kind of the issue actually. There was a wink emoji under that, stupid and loaded. He had replied with 3 laughing emojis and nothing else. Seeing that hurt in a very specific nasty way. He could ignore my real concerns but answer her flirting. I kept scrolling because apparently I like emotional self-harm. Another message stopped me cold halfway down. I'd never make you beg for attention like that. Don't start, you'll get me in trouble. You like trouble. No comment. That last one, those 2 stupid words, almost broke my self-control. I wanted to stomp straight to the bathroom and rip the curtain open. Instead, I locked the phone and set it back like evidence. My pulse pounded so hard I could hear it over the silence. For a second, I just stood there, gripping the counter again. My brain tried to bargain, tried to call it teasing. If it was harmless, why hide it, why talk about me? I knew the answer, I just did not want it. I pulled my own phone out and opened the camera with shaky hands. Picked hers back up and swiped the thread open again fast. Snap scroll, desperate little photos for future sanity. I had no intention of ever relying on their word again. The toilet flushed, cabinet door creaked, reality rushed back. I tossed her phone exactly where it had been before. By the time she padded into the kitchen, I was chopping again. I probably looked like someone trying out for a cooking show. Smells good, she said, leaning on the island watching me. Her phone buzzed right next to her wrist, lighting up. She smiled at the screen in this private, amused way. I saw my boyfriend's name flash again as she typed back. Big plans tonight, I kept my eyes on the cutting board. She shrugged, still texting, thumb moving fast, mouth curved. Just joking around, nothing fun ever happens here anyway. That sentence lodged under my skin like a splinter. I did not blow up then, which still surprises me. I finished dinner, made small talk, laughed when I had to. I responded to his messages with little safe emojis and yesies. I acted normal while my insides felt like wet cement. Later that night, I asked him to meet me outside. I could not do this conversation with walls and roommates listening. He walked up to my car with his usual half smile. That smile dropped when he saw my face. What's wrong? His hand hovered near the door handle. I unlocked the passenger side and climbed behind the wheel. Get in, I said, voice flat, heart hitting every rib. He slid into the seat like it might bite him. I went through her phone, I started, no smoothing, just truth. He blinked hard, mouth opening, ready to lecture me on privacy. Before he could form a word, I held up my screen. Photo after photo glowed between us in the dark. I watched the blood drain from his face as he scrolled. He lingered on the lines about me being dramatic and controlling. then the ones about him liking trouble and staying quiet. By the time he reached the end, his hand was trembling. "It's joking," he muttered, fingers tightening around the phone. "You know how she is, she pushes buttons, it's just jokes." A dry laugh burst out of me, too loud and ugly. "Explain the part where she would treat you better than me." He slumped back against the seat, head banging softly on the rest. "She's been venting about you, I didn't want to make it worse. So you entertained it behind my back instead." He flinched like the air itself just hit him. "I should have shut it down, I know I messed up. She's lonely and I didn't think you'd ever see it." That made something in my chest twist in a new way. So honesty only matters if you might get caught. He dragged his hands over his face, groaning under his breath. "I never touched her, I never planned to cheat on you. That bar is on the floor and you crawled under it." My voice shook but I stayed on him. "I'll block her or mute her, whatever you want." He sounded frantic now, not noble, just desperate to keep me. "That's not the point," I whispered, throat tight as hell. "You chose her validation over my trust more than once." We sat in silence for a long, heavy minute. He stared through the windshield like an exit might appear out there. I stared at my own reflection in the black glass. I barely recognized the girl who kept explaining away her instincts. Eventually, he reached over and grabbed my hand anyway. "I'll fix it," he said, eyes finally meeting mine again. "I'll tell her it crossed a line and it stops now." I wanted to believe that so badly it hurt. I pulled my hand back and rested it on my thigh. "Fine," I answered because I was not ready to leave. "But if you keep laughing at her flirting, we're done." Saying that out loud felt like standing on the edge. When I walked back inside later, my stomach still knotted. Her laughter floated from her room, upbeat and unbothered. My phone buzzed with a new message from him. "I'm going to talk to her tomorrow, I promise." Back then I clung to that promise like a lifeline. I thought this was the lowest point we would reach. Now typing this out, I know it was just the slope. After that night, every notification sounded like a warning siren. I opened my bedroom door and saw my own bra first. Not on the floor. On her. Right in the middle of our hallway. She stood there facing my boyfriend, my lace set on full display. His oversized t-shirt hung over it, unbuttoned down the front. My brain did this weird static thing before it caught up. I grabbed the doorframe hard because I honestly thought I might fall. "Morning," she called, lifting one hip like this was a photo shoot. She tugged the shirt open wider with 2 fingers, totally deliberate. "Do you think this works or is it too much?" She posed, eyes on him, not me. He looked like someone had thrown a spotlight on him. One hand hovered near his face, halfway through a gesture. His eyes dropped once, then shot back up like he burned himself. I watched that tiny journey and felt something crack. My mouth moved before I really decided what to say. "You're wearing my underwear." It came out flat and steady, which honestly scared me more. She finally turned like she remembered I existed. "Oh my God, you're up," she gave this fake surprised laugh. "I was going to ask you anyway, we're the same size." She pinched one strap like she was adjusting it on a hanger. My skin crawled at how casual she sounded. "We're not the same anything," I answered, pulse thudding in my neck. "That set is mine and you didn't even text." I could see the tiny bow between the cups and wanted to scream. "I wore that for anniversaries, not roommate fashion shows." She rolled her eyes and glanced at my boyfriend like we were children. "Relax, I found it in the wrong drawer, I thought it was older." Her hand slid down the front of his shirt, tracing the buttons. "So what, you were going to throw it out?" My boyfriend shifted his weight, hands jammed into his pockets. His jaw worked like he was chewing on words he did not use. He kept looking anywhere but directly at my face. That told me more than anything he could have said. "That top is new," I crossed my arms over my own sleep shirt. "You know it is, you watch me unpack it." I heard my voice shaking and I hated how obvious it sounded. She lifted her chin, irritation flashing for a second. "It's literally fabric," she laughed again, sharp this time. "We share space, stuff gets mixed up, no one died." She glanced at him for backup, like this was a minor argument. He stared at the floor, shoulders tight, completely useless. "You're not hearing me," I said, stepping closer into the hall. That's my intimate stuff, you put it on without asking. My heart hammered so hard my hands tingled with each beat. Take it off and put your own things back on. The air changed right then, heavy and brittle at once. Her smile vanished in this quick annoyed flicker I had not seen before. She planted one hand on the door next to my boyfriend's head. You're really going to police what I wear in my own apartment? You're wearing my lingerie and his shirt, I shot back without breathing. It's not about clothes, it's about what you're doing with them. I could feel my throat heating like I might cry or scream. Neither option felt safe in that hallway. My boyfriend finally spoke up, voice low and uneven. Maybe just change, okay? It's clearly bothering her. He did not step away from her, he stayed against the wall. It felt like he was watching a show instead of being in it. Her head snapped toward him like she could not believe it. Seriously, you're taking her side on this? She let out a short, disbelieving breath and gestured at herself. If she trusted you, she wouldn't flip over some lace. That line hit exactly where she wanted it to hit. My stomach twisted because she knew about the trust argument already. She had seen every insecurity through those texts front row. Now she was throwing them back at me like ammo. I took one more step until I stood between them. You don't get to drag trust into this, I said, voice rough. You've been whispering about me to my boyfriend for weeks. Her eyebrows shot up, but she did not deny it. Wow, she laughed once, loud and humorless, pushing off the wall. She really went through my phone, didn't she? Her gaze sliced over to him for confirmation, daring him. He stared at the baseboard, guilt written all over his posture. I went through it and I've seen enough, I answered. And now I'm looking at you in my lingerie flirting with him. Saying it out loud made my hands shake even more. I'm telling you again, go put your own clothes on. For a beat no one moved, like the whole apartment held its breath. I could hear a car passing outside, distant and normal and wrong. Inside that hallway, everything felt tilted and close to snapping. Her jaw tightened while she studied my face. You know what, she said finally, shoulders squaring like a dare. If you're that scared of losing him, that's a you problem. She brushed past my boyfriend, chest grazing him on purpose. I'll change, but not because you order me around. She stomped down the hall toward her room, back straight and stiff. The t-shirt swung around her thighs, lace flashing with each step. I watched until her door slammed, then finally exhaled. My legs felt shaky, like they might give out. The second her door clicked, my boyfriend moved away from the wall. He dragged a hand down his face, eyes closed, breathing uneven. That was insane, he muttered half to himself. I could not tell which of us he meant. I turned on him so fast he actually flinched. You watched her parade around in my underwear and said nothing. My voice came out hoarse from holding back all morning. How long was this going on before I opened my door? He opened his eyes and looked at me, finally meeting my stare. I walked out and she was already like that, I swear. I told her it was weird and she brushed it off. He ran his thumb along his bottom lip, a nervous tick. And you stayed, I narrowed my eyes, rage and hurt mixing. You stayed there while she modeled my stuff for you. He winced, shoulders curling inward like he wanted to disappear. I didn't know how to shut it down without starting a fight. Hearing that broke something in me I had been protecting. So you'd rather keep her comfortable than make me feel safe. My voice dropped to this low, raw place I barely recognized. Do you hear how that sounds, or are we still pretending? He stepped closer, hands half lifted like he wanted to hold me. I'm trying to make everyone okay, I keep messing it up. His eyes were glossy with panic and regret and pure confusion. I told her last night the text crossed a line, I did. That stopped me for a second, enough to blink. You actually talked to her, what did you say? He glanced toward her door, then back at me, throat working. I told her the flirting had to stop, that you were upset. And she responded by raiding my drawer and dressing up. I threw my hands out, the absurdity almost laughable. Do you not see that as an answer in itself? He closed his eyes again like he might be sick. I thought she was joking, trying to show it didn't mean anything. He sounded lost, like he was hearing his own excuses fresh. I didn't think she'd actually try to come between us. That last part landed soft, and somehow it made me angrier. She literally said she'd treat you better than me, I reminded him. She's mocking me in your messages and now in my hallway. I took a step back, needing space from the whole scene. I am done being the one who looks crazy in this story. Her door swung open again before he could answer. She reappeared in an oversized sweater and leggings, hair damp. My set was folded over her arm, straps dangling like a flag. She tossed it toward me with a bright fake smile. Here you go, princess, your crown, she said, voice dripping sugar. No worries, I washed it before I tried it on. I caught the bundle against my chest, nausea spiking. The idea of her body in that fabric made my skin itch. Keep it, I started to say, then swallowed the words whole. It would feel like surrender, and I was done giving ground. I clutched it tighter instead, knuckles white against the lace. She watched that and her smile widened. You know, if you don't trust him, that's not my job. She leaned on the wall, arms crossed, relaxed and smug. I'm friendly, that's all, you read it dirty because you're insecure. Her gaze slid over me like I was something small. My boyfriend stepped between us then, finally moving with purpose. That's enough, he said, steady now, eyes on her. You knew wearing her stuff would get to her, you did it anyway. He was shouting, but his tone left no room. She scoffed and pushed off the wall, face twisting. Wow, look at you, whipped in real time. She jabbed a finger toward me without breaking eye contact with him. She runs this place and you dance, that's what this is. That's our relationship, not yours, I cut in, voice low. You don't get to wrap your boundary stomping in feminism. I stepped closer until we were almost nose to nose. You knew exactly how this would land, you aimed for it. For a moment we just stared at each other, breathing hard. I saw something flash in her eyes, something ugly and sharp. She deserves better, she hissed, suddenly turning to him. At least I wouldn't make you walk on eggshells every day. That line ripped the air out of the hallway. He looked stunned, actually stunned, like he had not seen it coming. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, loud and relentless. This was what all the joking had been building toward. Get out of my relationship, I said, every word clipped. You crossed into my closet, my conversations, my bed, all of it. She opened her mouth to argue, and I held up a hand. Next step is you crossing the lease, do you understand? Her cheeks flushed, eyes flashing, fingers curling into fists. You two deserve each other, she muttered, turning away. She stormed back to her room, door slamming hard enough to rattle. Something inside me rattled with it. The hallway went quiet again, heavy and buzzing at once. I leaned against the wall and let my head fall back. My boyfriend touched my arm, fingertips light, almost scared. I'm so sorry, he whispered, voice frayed. I laughed, short and cracked, not even close to amused. I don't want apologies, I want this pattern to stop. I held up the lace bundle between us like a piece of evidence. Next time she pulls something like this, I'm not arguing in the hallway. What does that mean? He asked, eyes searching my face. It means I start looking for new places to live, I answered. And I start looking at you like someone I used to know. Saying that out loud hit both of us at the same time. He swallowed hard and nodded once, no more excuses. I'll talk to the landlord about her name on the lease, he said. We'll figure something out, this can't keep happening. For the first time that morning, I believed he meant it. I went back to my room and shut the door slowly. Laid the lace set on the bed and stared at it. It looked harmless, soft and small and ridiculous. All I could see was her body in it and his eyes. Now writing this, I know that hallway scene was the line. Before that, I kept twisting myself into knots to make sense of her. After that morning, every small thing turned into a measurement. Was he choosing her comfort or finally choosing me? I heard her say his name before I even stepped inside. Not normal, not playful, stretched out and low. The door was unlocked, which never happened when I was gone. I turned the handle and froze in the entryway. His voice came from the hallway, strained and quiet. Stop, this isn't fair to anyone. Something in that tone sent a jolt straight through my chest. I put my keys down without a sound and listened. Her door sat half open down the hall like an invite. I took a few steps, shoes still on, heart pounding. My brain started bargaining again, searching for harmless explanations. Then her next sentence hit and killed every excuse. I was in love with you first. Her voice cracked on that word in a way I had never heard. You know it, she swooped in and grabbed you. My hand clamped around the hallway wall to keep moving. He muttered something too low to catch, words swallowed. She pushed right over him, volume rising with each phrase. You chased me for months, remember, before she even showed up. A beat of silence followed, sharp and heavy. I reached the doorway and stayed just out of sight. Her room looked different from this angle, messier and intimate. They were standing close, not touching but barely any air. He had his hands half raised like he didn't know where to put them. You're rewriting history, he answered, voice rough with frustration. I had a crush, sure, then you ghosted and pulled away. He scrubbed a palm over his jaw, eyes flicking toward the floor. Then I met her and that's who I chose. That's who you settled for, she cut in fast. The words came out sharp, no sweetness left. She's safe, she worships you, you never have to grow. She stepped closer, chin lifted, daring him to disagree. He blew out a breath and took a half step back. I care about her, this isn't some backup plan. His shoulders were tense, voice shaking, eyes darting everywhere. If you really cared about me, you'd stop trying to ruin this. Oh, so now I'm the problem, she shot back immediately. Her laugh was harsh, without any of her usual charm. I watched you look at me for years like I hung the moon. S.A. He pressed a hand to her own chest, dramatic and hurt. You wanted me, she said, softer now, deadly serious. You wanted me before she even knew your last name. She stepped closer again until their toes almost touched. I just want what we were supposed to have. He swallowed hard enough that I heard it from the doorway. That ship sailed, he answered, quieter, exhausted. I'm with her now, that's my life. His hands hovered near her elbows, not touching, not pushing away. Then why do you keep answering my texts, she whispered. She tilted her head, studying his face with laser focus. If you're so committed, why do you keep laughing with me? He flinched, tiny movement, but I saw it. It was stupid, he admitted, shoulders dropping as he spoke. I like the attention, I won't lie about that. He looked older in that moment, tired and guilty and trapped. But this crossed every line, I'm done. You're not done with me. She said it like a fact, not a hope. She reached forward and wrapped her fingers around his wrist. I watched his whole body go rigid. Her voice dropped even lower, almost a growl now. You touch me like you're made of glass when she's around. Her thumb slid up to the inside of his arm, slow. But when you're drunk, you look at me like you remember. My stomach lurched so hard I almost made a sound. Drunk. I grabbed that word and shook it in my head. Had something already happened that I didn't know about? I never slept with you, he said quickly, force in every word. I never kissed you, I never crossed that line. He shook his head like he was trying to knock loose a memory. I flirted, I'm a coward, but that's it. You wanted to, she murmured, not letting go of his arm. Her other hand slid up, flattening against his chest. You still do, you're shaking right now. She smiled, slow and sure, like she had already won. He grabbed her wrist then and pulled it away from his shirt. I'm shaking because this is messed up, not because I want you. He finally stepped back fully, putting real distance between them. You're my roommate, she is my partner. She stared at the empty space he'd opened like it offended her. Then something changed in her face, desperate and reckless. Fine, she breathed, then tell me you never pictured it. Her eyes filled not with sadness, more with rage. Tell me you've never thought about what it'd be like with me, she pressed. Not once, not when she fell asleep early, not when I sat in your shirt. She moved toward him again, closing the space he'd made. Look me in the eye and lie. He hesitated. That half second where his mouth opened but nothing came out. That was all she needed. She surged forward, grabbed his hand and placed it on her hip. The impact of his palm against her body snapped me into overdrive. I stepped fully into the doorway with my heart hammering. He looked like someone had dropped live wires into his arms. His fingers stayed frozen where she'd shoved them. Let go, he finally muttered, eyes wide, voice strained. He tried to pull his hand back and she tightened her grip. You feel that, she said, leaning in closer to his face. You really want to pretend there's nothing here. She lifted his hand higher, pressing it against her waist. Then she used her other hand to cup his jaw. "I'm done waiting," she whispered, mouth inches from his. "I'm taking back what should have been mine." I watched her tilt her head, eyes closing, lips parting. Something in me went very still, like I left my own body. My brain stopped spinning and just recorded everything. Her weight leaned into him as she rose on her toes. He jerked his head away at the last moment, sharp and fast. Her mouth landed on his cheekbone instead of his lips. He stepped back hard enough that his heel hit the dresser. "Enough," he snapped, voice finally loud and clear. She stumbled, caught herself, then whipped around toward him. "What are you doing?" she demanded, breath coming fast. "She doesn't even appreciate you, not like I do." Her hands shook as she reached for him again. This time he grabbed both her wrists and held them away. His chest moved like he'd just sprinted a mile. "This is not happening," he said, each word flat and clipped. "I will not cheat on her with you in this room." The sentence hung there, thick and undeniable. She went very quiet, eyes narrowing, lips pressed tight. "Of course she shows up now," she muttered under her breath. That was when I realized her gaze was fixed over his shoulder. He followed her line of sight and turned toward the doorway. Our eyes met for the first time since I stepped into the apartment. His face drained of color, shock washing over every feature. He dropped her wrists like they burned. I stood there, hands still on the doorframe, feeling weirdly steady. I had expected to shake, to scream, to fall apart completely. Instead, I felt this cold, focused clarity settle over everything. Like the universe finally stopped gaslighting me. "How long have you been there?" he asked, voice barely more than air. He took one step toward me, then stopped himself. I glanced at her, then back at him, jaw tight. "Long enough to know I'm not crazy." She pushed past him, eyes flashing, stalking closer. "So you were spying," she snapped, chin lifted high. "You just love playing detective instead of fixing your relationship." Her breath hit my face, hot and furious. "You tried to kiss my boyfriend in our shared home," I replied. Every word landed sharp, my tone almost calm. "You dragged him into your room and told him I stole him." My hand curled into a fist at my side to keep from shaking. "He stole himself," she shot back, finger jabbing toward his chest. "He chased me, he wanted me, he just picked the easier option." She spun to face him again, eyes bright with rage. "Tell her I'm lying, go ahead." He looked between us like he'd been dropped into traffic. His mouth opened twice before any sound came out. "I had feelings for you before, yes," he said, all in one breath. "Then you vanished, I moved on, that's the timeline." She laughed, short and ugly, wiping at her cheek with her wrist. "You never moved on, you downgraded," she hissed. "She just got there first with the label, that's all." Every sentence was aimed at me, but her eyes stayed on him. I stepped farther into the room until I stood beside him. I could feel his arm tremble slightly near mine. "I'm not fighting over you," I told her and meant it. "I'm fighting for my self-respect, not his attention." She rolled her eyes, lips curling, voice dripping contempt. "Your self-respect walked out when you begged him to stay," she said. "You saw the messages and stayed anyway, that's on you." That hit harder than anything she'd said so far. I swallowed the sting and locked onto her face. "You're right about one thing," I said, throat tight. "I stayed too long in a situation that made me feel insane." I glanced at him, then back at her. "That ends today." He reached for my hand like he could glue everything together. "Mia, please," he started, voice raw, eyes frantic. She came at me, I pushed her away, "You saw that." He gripped my fingers, desperate. I let him hold on for exactly 3 seconds. Then I pulled my hand back, slow and deliberate. "You should have never been in this position with her at all," I said. "That's the part you keep missing." She scoffed, crossing her arms, shoulders tight. "You're not leaving him," she announced too confidently. "You love him too much, you're addicted to drama, this is nothing." Her certainty made something stubborn spark inside me. "You're right, I do love him," I answered, eyes on her. "I just finally love myself enough too." I turned to him, noting the panic in his expression. "I don't know what I'm doing yet, but this is not okay." He dragged both hands through his hair, pacing once in a small circle. "She ambushed me, I told her no, I told her I'm with you." He sounded frantic, like he was trying to outrun the reality. Please don't throw everything away over her. What you call ambushed looks a lot like an open door, I replied. And a long history of flirting you never cut off. I gestured around the room, at the bed, the space, all of it. I'm not crazy for seeing a pattern, it's right here. She watched me with a strange mix of fury and grudging respect. You finally have a backbone, she said quietly, almost impressed. Too bad you grew it this late. She smirked like she'd still won somehow. You need to move out, I told her, turning fully in her direction. It just came out clear and solid without rehearsal. You made this living situation hostile and unsafe for me. I felt my voice steady as I spoke. Her smile dropped, eyes narrowing, jaw tightening. You don't get to throw me out, my name S on the lease too, she fired back. That's not how this works, sweetheart. She folded her arms, planting herself like a boulder. I'm not a lawyer, I said, refusing to blink. But I do know harassment when I see it. I looked over at him again, giving him one last chance. You either back me on this or we're done. The room went silent, thick with everything unsaid. His gaze bounced between us, sweat beading at his temple. I saw the calculation in his eyes, the fear, the guilt. When he finally opened his mouth, I knew whatever he chose would change everything. That was where the ground really shifted under all three of us. Not when she grabbed his hand. Not when she leaned in for that almost kiss. But in that quiet second, with both of us watching, waiting to see who he stood next to. He moved toward me. Not toward her. Toward me. I back you, he said, voice rough but steady. She needs to leave, this can't keep happening. He didn't touch me though. That distance said almost as much as his words. Her mouth dropped. Open, shock beating out anger for a second. You're joking, she breathed, eyes flicking between us. You're actually picking her after everything I just told you. Her laugh came out choked, almost disbelieving. This is not a contest, I answered, even though it absolutely felt like one. We live together, you've disrespected every line I set. I turned to him, keeping my eyes on his. You're calling the landlord today, no more delay. He nodded quick, like he already knew this was overdue. I'll call after work, he promised, jaw set. We'll figure the logistics, but this setup is over. That was the first time I'd heard him talk in firm terms. She dragged both hands through her hair and stared at the ceiling. Unreal, she muttered, pacing once in a tight circle. I open my heart and you two run straight to paperwork. She shot me a look that could have cut glass. I stepped out of her doorway and into the hall. I'm done arguing in your bedroom, I told her, exhausted. If you have something to say it like an adult later. I could feel adrenaline burning out, leaving something hard and clear. He followed me into the hallway, staying just behind my shoulder. You're doing the right thing, he said quietly, like a truce. It sounded like he was trying to convince himself too. I didn't answer because I wasn't sure yet. I shut our bedroom door and leaned against it for a second. The silence felt thick, almost heavy against my eardrums. He hovered near the dresser, hands tucked under his arms. We both looked like we just walked off a battlefield. I meant what I said, he started, eyes tracing the floor. I'm choosing you, I'm choosing us, I know I screwed up. His voice kept catching on the words, small little stumbles. It never got physical, I pulled back, you saw that. I sat on the edge of the bed, palms pressed to my knees. Do you want the honest version of what I'm thinking? I asked. He nodded immediately, almost too eager, like honesty might save him. It matters less what you did in there and more what you allowed earlier. He winced, shoulders curling inward again. I know I fed this, he admitted, eyes finally lifting to mine. I liked being wanted from two directions, it made me feel big. Hearing that actually helped because it was ugly and real. I'm not surprised two people fight over, I said softer. I'm a person who begged her own brain to shut up for months. My throat felt tight, but the words kept coming. I need you to understand how insane this made me feel. He crossed the room and crouched in front of me. I see it now, he said, hands hanging loose between his knees. I kept telling you it was nothing so I wouldn't face it. He exhaled long and shaky, that was selfish. Yeah, I said, because there was no gentle version. It was. We let that hang between us, heavy but honest. Then I pulled my legs up, creating a small gap. I'm not giving you an answer about us today, I told him. His eyes widened, panic flickering, but he didn't interrupt. I need to see what you do, not just what you say. I pointed toward the door. Step 1 is her getting out. He nodded slower this time, taking that in. Okay, I'll handle everything with the lease and dates. He stood up and rubbed a hand over his face. Do you want to be here when I call or no? Yeah, I said, surprising both of us. I want to hear you actually follow through. If I'd left the room, I knew I'd doubt him later. I was done filling in blanks with optimism. He grabbed his phone and dialed in front of me. Put the call on speaker and walked into the hallway. His voice changed slightly, more professional, more careful. He explained we needed her off the lease, that things were tense. The landlord asked questions, the usual dry, practical stuff. Was there a safety concern? Were there incidents? He glanced at me and I nodded once. There's been boundary crossing and harassment, he said, choosing each word. We're not trying to cause drama, but it's not sustainable. He listened, jaw working, then finally thanked them. When he hung up, he leaned on the wall like his legs forgot how. Well, he breathed, blowing air out between his lips. They can't kick her out immediately without giving notice. My stomach tightened again, but differently now, more like bracing. But they'll start the process if we give written explanation. That's your part, I told him, voice steady. You were in that room, you saw it up close. He nodded, swallowing, eyes still far away. I'll put it in writing tonight. We didn't talk to her the rest of that afternoon. She banged around the kitchen, cabinets opening and closing harder than necessary. At one point she laughed loudly at something on her phone. Every sound felt like a test. Later, when it was just the two of us in the living room, I spoke first. You need to tell her it's official, I said, staring at the TV. Not an argument, a factual update. Move out is happening. He shifted beside me, nervous energy rolling off him. I'll tell her, he said, standing like his legs weighed 100 pounds. If she flips out, I don't want you in the crossfire. I almost laughed at that, considering the last few months. Instead, I just nodded. I'll be in our room. I listened through the wall while he knocked on her door. She opened it with an annoyed scoff that carried down the hallway. What now? She snapped, impatience thick in every syllable. I could picture her leaning on the frame, arms folded, ready to fight. I talked to the landlord, he started, trying to keep calm. They're going to start removing you from the lease. Silence followed, sharp and electric. Then her voice hit like a slap. You went behind my back with her, she accused loudly. After everything I told you, you run crying to management. Her volume climbed with each word, fury spilling everywhere. So that's it, I'm just trash you take out. You crossed lines with both of us, he answered, voice firmer. I own my part in that, but this living setup is toxic. I could hear his footsteps, steady, not backing away this time. You'll have time to find somewhere else, we're not monsters. She made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. You think any place is going to feel like home after this, she threw back. I built a life here and she waltzed in and ruined it. That one stung more than I expected. I stepped into the hallway before I could talk myself out of it. I ruined it, I repeated, eyebrows raised. I didn't drag your boyfriend into my room and confess a secret crush. She spun to face me, eyes blazing. You stole him, she said, pointing straight at my chest. You played sweet and patient and he fell for it. She turned back to him, pleading and furious all at once. Tell her how you chased me first. He closed his eyes like he'd been punched. I did pursue you, he admitted, opening them again. Then you pushed me away, I moved on, that's the truth. His voice cracked on the last word, but he didn't change it. She let her hand fall, shoulders slumping for a heartbeat. Then anger flooded back in and stiffened her spine. You two are toxic together, she spat venom back in full force. You feed each other's worst fears and call it love. I don't care what you call it, I replied, surprisingly calm. I care that I can walk around my own place without feeling hunted. I felt my hands shaking and laced my fingers to hide it. You made that impossible, now we're making a change. She stared at us like she didn't recognize either of our faces. Fine, she said finally, voice cold and flat. You want me gone, I'll go, but you're both going to regret this. She slammed her door so hard a picture rattled on the wall. He sagged against the opposite wall and wiped his mouth with his sleeve. I know we're doing the right thing, he murmured like a mantra. I just hate that it got here. I understood that more than I wanted to. The next week was strangely quiet and tense at the same time. She started packing in bursts, loud and chaotic like small storms. Sometimes she ignored us completely, sometimes she muttered under her breath. We stayed out of her way and counted the days. There was one moment in the kitchen that still sticks with me. I walked in for coffee, she was taping a box shut. We locked eyes over the counter, neither of us moving. Then she spoke, voice low and sharp. You do realize he'll always remember what almost happened, she said. Not a question, just a knife dropped on the table. I held her stare, refusing to look away. And he'll remember that he stopped it, I answered. For now, she muttered, turning back to her box. Her hands shook as she tore the tape, fast and rough. You think you won something, you just postponed it. I walked out before she could see my face twist. He tried to be extra attentive during those days. Little gestures like leaving snacks on my desk, hugging me longer. It almost made things worse because I could see the effort. Love was there, but trust sat in the corner, arms crossed. The morning she moved out, the apartment felt strangely hollow. Her dad's truck pulled up outside and she hauled boxes out. She didn't look at me once, not even by accident. She gave him one quick glance that was a mix of fury and hurt. Take care, he said quietly at the door, hand on the frame. She paused, back turned, shoulders tight. You could have had something real, she threw over her shoulder. Then she walked away without waiting for a response. We watched the truck pull off from the living room window. He stood beside me, arms wrapped around his own ribs. When the truck turned the corner, he finally spoke. I'm sorry it took this long, he whispered. I nodded, eyes still on the empty street. I'm sorry I let it go this long too, I admitted. I kept trying to be the chill girlfriend instead of the honest one. My throat burned, but it felt more like cleansing than breaking. He turned toward me, eyes tired and earnest. Do you still want to be with me? He asked. No preface, no jokes, just raw. I stared at him for a long moment. I don't know yet, I answered, which was brutal and true. I know I care about you, I know you pulled away in that room. I took a breath, grounding myself in the present. I also know you fed this whole thing until it almost blew us up. He nodded slowly, absorbing every word. I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild, he said. Therapy, boundaries, no more secret anything, you name it. He sounded like someone who finally understood the cost. I believed he meant it. That didn't magically glue my pieces back together. So I told him the only plan I had. We're going week by week, no big promises, just actions. That night, after he fell asleep on the couch, I stayed up. The apartment sounded different with one person gone. Quieter but not peaceful yet. My brain refused to shut down. I opened my laptop and pulled up Reddit. My fingers hovered over the keyboard while I thought about everything. The hoodie at the door. The shorts. The tags. The almost kiss. I realized how many times I'd asked myself if I was overreacting. How many times I'd apologized for feeling deeply uncomfortable. How many times I'd been told it was just joking. I hated how familiar that pattern felt. So I started typing. I am losing my crap over my roommate thirsting for my boyfriend. The words came easier than I expected once I began. She's been walking around in his clothes, then my lingerie, then this happened. I laid out the scenes, not the fancy commentary. I described the hoodie with no pants. The gym shorts on her in front of him. The messages I found that made my stomach drop. The hallway argument with my underwear on her body. Then I wrote about standing in her doorway. Watching her grab his hand and try to pull him in. Watching him jerk away and say no. Watching him choose me when I told him to pick a side. I didn't paint myself as perfect. I admitted I went through her phone. I admitted I stayed even after seeing the screenshots. I admitted I kept trying to out-reason my own intuition. When I finished, my hands were buzzing. I sat back and read the whole thing once slowly. I didn't dress it up or tone it down. I hit post before I could second guess myself. Now I'm here, waiting for strangers on the internet to weigh in. Some part of me feels pathetic about that. Another part feels like I finally stepped outside the funhouse mirrors. I needed voices that weren't invested in protecting either of them. Do I still feel crazy? Yeah. Even with the move out in motion. Even with him choosing me. But for the first time in months, I'm not apologizing for having boundaries. I'm not brushing off my own discomfort as jealousy or drama. If anything, I'm more angry at myself for staying silent so long. That anger is weirdly comforting because it points me back to me. Whatever Reddit says, this is the part that matters. I watched a line get crossed in real time and I didn't gaslight myself. I told them both I was done accepting half-truths and secret flirting. And I meant it. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Roommate on the way out. Boyfriend on probation. Me finally backing myself like I should have from day one.